upon an estimate of 5% sales tax growth during the year. And sales tax revenue is still declining in Suffolk County. So you got a long way to go to get from where you really are to the number that they use in the budget. So a lot of people think that that budget is going to run into trouble as well. School districts, state aid reductions is the biggest concern that they have, and they have basic cost increases, negotiated salary and step and other compensation increases in the cost of special education and health care. See, special education, health care, and pensions, those three items represent almost 1/3 of a school district budget. So those cost factors continue to go up. The net effect of all this is probably going to be difficult to keep down tax increases on Long Island during 2010. There'll be an awful lot of pressure on school districts to come in with as small an increase as possible, but the net effect is that it's probably going to be difficult to keep it down. One thing that I don't go into because it's not particularly relevant to the title of the slide, but you should be aware of, is health insurance cost increases. This past year, the state legislature, in order to solve its budget deficit, imposed about $1 billion in new taxes on health insurance premiums and on the insurance companies that offer health insurance premiums. It is reliably estimated that health insurance premiums in 2010 are going up in New York 7.8% only to pay for the taxes that were increased last year. So any other increases driven by the cost of health care itself will be on top of the 7.8%. So that's another cost factor that is not going to be particularly helpful. Now, this is going to be a very political year. You really need a program to follow all the players, and the players are in and out, up and down, and they're all over the place. Governor Patterson's approval rating has risen to 38% from about 21%. Governor Patterson is basically doing a give him hell Harry kind of an approach. In 1948, Harry Truman, who was unpopular, decided he was going to run against Congress, and he went around the country just yelling and screaming about Congress, and everybody said, yeah, give him hell Harry. And that's essentially what David Patterson has decided to do. And it seems to be working. The legislature is even more unpopular than Governor Patterson is. Governor Patterson is a very nice guy who came into difficult circumstances. Now, he has one announced Republican candidate, Rick Lazio, former congressman from Long Island, who, after running unsuccessfully against Hillary Clinton a number of years ago, went into the private sector and is now trying to come back into public life. Steve Levy just announced that he wants to run for governor. Andrew Cuomo, the Attorney General, has not formally announced and is in the background, but he has the best poll numbers in New York. And there could be somebody else coming into the race, you never know. But right now, those four people are the four people who are in the mix. And how all of this is going to sort out is, I would say, anybody's guess right now. The state legislature. The entire state legislature is up for election. A very difficult year. We came out of the November 9, 2008 election. Everybody said it was very negative for incumbents, and there is an assumption that that's 2008, 2009. Everybody assumes that the 2010 election will be the same atmosphere. That remains to be seen. November's a long time away, but there are many vulnerable seats on both sides of the aisle in the legislature. If you read about vulnerable Democratic seats, for example. The Democrats feel that Brian Foley's seat on Long Island and Greg Johnson's seat on Long Island are vulnerable seats. A couple of seats in Westchester are vulnerable seats and so forth. There also are vulnerable Republican senatorial seats where the registration of Democrats versus Republicans has changed in the last couple of years, and there are more Democrats than there are Republicans in those districts, and the Republican senators are older, many of them in their 80s. So there's a lot of fluidity in the state legislative elections, and at least particularly in the Senate side. The margin in the Assembly is probably so large, Democrat to Republican, that it's unlikely to change. The U.S. Senate, Senator Gillibrand, appointed by Governor Patterson, is, I would say, has not a lot of support throughout the state. Bruce Blakeman, lawyer on Long Island, former Nassau County legislator presiding officer, just announced on Sunday that he is going to run as a Republican against Senator Gillibrand. Former Mayor Giuliani decided that he was not going to. Former Governor Pataki has not said yet, but sort of indicated that he's not likely to do it. On the Democratic side, the former Tennessee Representative Harold Ford Jr., who moved to New York, worked for Merrill Lynch, is still working for Merrill Lynch, has indicated some interest, although he hasn't again formally jumped in the race. He would provide a primary for Senator Gillibrand. So the net effect of all of that right now is, a lot of noise, try to follow the players with a scorecard, not a lot of action during the course of the year. Given the mood that is incumbent, a lot of these people are going to have to show, they're out there doing things and things of that kind. But there's going to be, a lot more noise probably during the course of the year than actual accomplishment. In part because of the recession, and in part because of the complicated politics. Federal stimulus for small businesses. I'll touch on this fairly quickly. Last year, right at the time that the stimulus package was passed, we had a panel discussion here of 4 of the 5 members of the congressional delegation from Long Island, and the first question I asked them was, in that stimulus package that we just passed, given the fact that small businesses create 80% of the jobs in this country, how much of that stimulus package was direct stimulus for small businesses to help them survive and help them create jobs? There was a long pause. And then I would say to his credit, Congressman Ackerman said, well, not much, if anything. And that's true. The original stimulus package had very little that went directly to help small businesses stimulate their business so that they could hire people. So that's the issue. Now, almost a year later, the president is proposing some specific things relating to small businesses, eliminating capital gains on small business investments, extending through this year $250,000 investment write-off, eliminating small businesses, SBA, small business administration fees, and raising their guarantees, and I'll come back to that, and what they call cash for caulkers, which is a home weatherization program. If you look at those 4 things, which are really the meat of what has been proposed by the administration, I think you'd agree that, well, okay, it's better than nothing, but does it really get at the meat of what small businesses on a broad scale need right now? I would say no. There has been a lot of talk about a tax credit for consumer spending right now for a limited period of time. That affects all small businesses. Now, what the administration is thinking of doing here with the SBA is to put the SBA in a position in which it's more of a direct marketplace retail competitor for credit with banks. That's what the idea is. In other words, the way to stimulate banks to start lending more is to put the SBA out there as a competitor. Give the SBA a lot of money, loosen up the SBA regulations, let them start processing loans for small businesses faster at higher amounts, and that will cause the banks to feel that they're losing potential business, and then the banks will loosen up their credit practices. Interesting idea. Remains to be seen whether it will work or not, but they're going to give that a try. That's what that is all about. So one of the things that I think this organization and other business organizations should spend time on in 2010 is trying to pressure Congress, everybody in the House of Representatives up for election this year, to do more that is directly stimulative for the broad base of small businesses.
Actually, question.
Yeah.
If the SBA does start to become a direct lender, and if they follow the same guidelines as the banks, then that affects the same service.
Yeah, but they're not going to follow the same guidelines as the banks. The idea is to be more liberal. The idea is that the SBA becomes more liberal.